Welcome to the Big Screen Symposium podcast. The Big Screen Symposium was held in Auckland at the Victory Events Centre on the 5th and 6th of April 2024. Piripi Curtis, Te Kohe Tuhaka, Angela Cudd and Tihini Grant discussed the diverse strategies Māori producers employ to create greater awareness of Māori values, practices and perspectives when it comes to filming on iwi and hapu-owned land. This session shares respectful engagement practices and discusses the nuances of engaging with mana whenua in Aotearoa, New Zealand.
Kāti rā kei runga. A tēnei rā te reo o mihi e karawhiu nei ki runga i a tātou, ko whakarau i ka nei. I raru i tātahu o tā tātou nei whare. Tēnā nau mai hara mai. Ki runga i ngā whenua tauri kura o Ngāti Whātua. A nei tātou, te tini me te mano e whakakanohi nei ngā rohe-rohenga, ngā hapu, ngā tini maunga, ngā tini awa. O tira ngā tini iwi kei wainganu i a tātou, ko tae mai ki te kōrero-rero mo tēnei mea. Te tukitanga a rātou mai i para anō te huarahi. Kia tu ai tātou ki runga i ngā whenua a rātou mā nā rātou anō i whawhai. Kia koutou, ko tae mai tēnā rā koutou, kia mātou, ko tae mai tēnā anō tātou. Kia ora.
Ko matawhaura te maunga, te roto i te ki te aihinga te moana, ko rāwhia te tūpuna whare. Ko Ngāti rongo mai, me Ngāti Pikao, ngā iwi, ko te arawa te waka, ko Piripi Curtis tōku ingoa. I'm a producer of lots of content and I'm going to hand it on them to introduce themselves. Kia ora.
Kia ora anō tātou, ko te Kohe Tuhaka tōku ingoa, ki te tāo tōku māma, he uri tēnei, mai Ngāti Haka, patu hiau, ki roto i ngā whārua, ngā māru o Tūhoi, ki te rātā, ki te tāo tōku pāpā, no te he Tuhaka au no rangi tukia, no hinei waiapu, ki raro i te maru o tā tātou nei maunga tipua a hipurangi. I am also a producer. Apparently, I've been told that many times. I'm an actor and a director, and I am here to have a mean-as wānanga around this thing called cultural engagement. Kia ora.
Tēnā tātou e karahui mai nei i tēnei rā. Taku ingoa ko Tihini Grant. My pēpeha is very similar to Piripi's in that we have the same maunga matawhaura, the same moana rotoiti. I'm just from the good end of our lake. From the Ngāti Hinerangi, Ngāti Hinekiri, Ngāti Te Tākinga end of the lake. And like my fellow panelists, like whanea hau ki te wānanga i tēnei take, nui whakahara rā tātou. Tēnā koutou.
Kia ora tātou, ko Angela Cudd tōku ingoa, i te taha o tōku māma, he uri tēnei no Ngāti Porou, te whānau āpanui, Ngāti Waihoki, i te taha o tōku pāpā, no Ingarangi ia. No reira, I'm from two worlds. My dad's Pākehā, my mum is Māori. I'm from the coast, born and raised in Gizzy, and recently we found out that some of my nan's whānau's from the north, Ngāti Wai, which she kept secret for years. So that's a recent discovery that I'm quite proud of. But yeah, I'm excited to be here. I feel really special sitting here with, these rangatira, they're awesome. So really proud to contribute to this conversation. Kia ora.
So we're not doing anything formal. We're just I'm going to ask a lot of questions, get them to do most of the talking. But I thought we'd start with the whole, what is mana whenua? It's a new concept in the last little while, not for Māori, but maybe help define it a bit more for everybody so that it's not a buzzword, although it may feel like that because it's come out of nowhere. We've been used to for years dealing with iwi and government dealing with iwi. That was because of the settlements and Te Tiriti, and this is where it really starts from. But I want to throw it to any one of these guys to explain mana whenua and why it's not going away, why it's not just a buzzword, why it's actually getting down to the reality of our world.
There's two streams of thought. There are some hapu, iwi, paukainga that don't like the term mana whenua. And then they prefer to be known as tangata whenua. And then there is the opposite, the people who prefer to be known as mana whenua. Both tell one thing. Who owns the whenua? Nō wai te whenua, nō wai ngā tikanga o te whenua. So, in understanding that, I'll go back to the beginning of what I just said. It's a preference thing e hāngai ana kia rātou. It's whatever they would like to be known as, ne? And how they would like to be engaged. So that's my understanding. That's how it's come about in my engagements with a lot of rohe and a lot of hapu. And I got told that as I got growled for using it in a whai kōrero. So there's good learnings, plenty of learnings there. So that's my take on it.
So there's two parts to that. Titai ko te mana, tuarua ko te whenua. So the concept of mana, you'll often hear it described, especially if you're working in government departments or corporate environments, that mana's an authority or a power or an ability to call shots. Yes, kei te tika e ngā whakamarama, but there's a whole raft of understandings around the concept of mana that aren't included in those three words. Firstly, there's human dignity, there's nobility, there's pride, there's strength, there's honour. All those concepts are all wrapped up in the one word mana. So whenua obviously is our land, and when we understand whenua from a Māori perspective, it's not just land. And if you start to study te reo Māori, you'll also start to see that the names that our ancestors gave things are multi-layered. So whenua doesn't just mean land, it means many other things. It's also the place in which a baby sits during the whole gestation period. So that idea that the whenua, that the baby is held inside, is a safe place and a place of nurturing, is the same concept that sits upon the land for us. So mana and whenua together, again, is an accepted concept in some iwi, and others it's totally railed against. So with those understandings, that might help you towards a little bit of an understanding. For me, I always like to acknowledge the mana of those people who are connected to the land that I go to. So having Ngāti Whātua here for us the other day, welcome us to their whenua, welcome us to their land, and give mana to our hui. That's an important part of travelling anywhere. So as an Arawa person, when I'm on my own lands, it's down into a sub-tribal level. But when I'm representing my people anywhere outside of my homelands, it goes up another notch in the level of dignity and respect that I have to hold the mana whenua of that area that I'm travelling to. So inside my work as a writer-director, reo cultural consultant guy, those are aspects of my mahi that I hold as guiding principles in any of the things that I do. That was a long explanation.
Nah, that was good. And I'm trying to think what I can add to it, because I feel like you've covered it quite well. But I guess what I can add is how is that applicable to you as a producer or a writer or a director telling your stories or wanting to tell stories? And I think the first thing that I would say is mana whenua are important if you want to have them in your... If you want to... Well, first of all, you shouldn't tell their stories, but I guess that's what I'm trying to say. If you're trying to tell the story of a rohe that you're not part of, if you're excited by it, I want to say, and this is going to be controversial, I think that's awesome. I think it's awesome for us to love other cultures and to want to participate and to want to immerse ourselves in those worlds if we're doing it the right way. And I think that's what we're kind of trying to touch on. So just to give you an example, I produced a movie called Uproar let's go. So thank you to that one person who whipped. Thank you. So I produced it with Emma Slade and Sandra Kailahi, and I was actually the last person to come onto that kaupapa in the producing team. So the whakapapa of that story was that it was based on the life of Paul Middleditch, who's a Pākehā man, and Julian Dennison, who's Māori, came on board as the lead cast member. So that story immediately went from a Pākehā story to a Māori story about identity. And we had to go right back to the drawing board and start all over again in terms of writing the script, in terms of packaging the story, in terms of having conversations with mana whenua in kaitahu. I guess that what I'm trying to say is make sure that if you want to tell a story that is not your own, that you bring in the people who can tell that story, which is exactly what happened. So we had Hamish Bennett come on board, who is from Kaitahu. We brought the hapu, the two main hapu of Otipoti into the kaupapa, and they were with us from script. They saw shoot all the way to the end. Anyways, I'm going on, but there's my main point.
Kia ora, kia ora.
Kia ora, really getting into it. That's awesome. So for mana whenua, I produced a little bit last year with a feature film called Ka Whawhai Tonu, which Mike will show you that later. I was also co-producer on a TV series for Kata Māori called End of the Valley. And I was also co-producer on a Tollywood film. Tollywood is the same as Bollywood, except the South Indian people, they speak Telugu. So they call themselves Tollywood. And I had to engage with mana whenua. But I just wanted to give an example from Ka Whawhai Tonu about the change in attitude with our hapu and our iwi and our mana whenua. So for Ka Whawhai Tonu, we tell the story of the Battle of Ōrākau, which was based in Ngāti Raukawa territory. And bordering the Te Aroha territory is a tribe called Tura Ngāti Te Ngākau. And they've got a foot in the Raukawa camp and a foot in the Te Aroha camp. And when the confiscations happened, they lost a lot of land. And their boundary comes right up to Mount Nongatawa. When you're coming in to the Rotorua, that's all Mamaku area. So we filmed in Mamaku. We engage with Tura Te Ngākau, and their attitude was that they would go to all the farms in their rohe, and they'd talk to the farmers and say, please do not dig until you've consulted with us. Their attitude is, we have mana whenua. And really, mana whenua, the conversation really has to go back to te tiriti. And so what they're doing is they're exercising the sovereignty that they never ceded. And so they're going to farmers who've got legal title, and they're saying, do not dig until you see us first. This is our whenua. There might be something of significance to us. You no longer have the carte blanche, I guess, to do anything that you feel like you want to do on the land. And so this is just starting for us, and I dare say it'll start to happen around the country. And this is something might help guide you when you're thinking about making your films in the future, that there are iwi starting to step up and take have a stronger voice in what happens on their whenua. So it's really important that we start to engage with these people. And so our journey with them was to ensure that they were part of the journey. And so we sent the script out to all these people, because when we want to engage with these people, with their story is what we're really saying. And I had to prove that we as the storytellers had whakapapa to that. And so Mike, the director, had whakapapa to his great-great-great-grandmother was in the Battle of Ōrākau. And on my journey, I found out that my great-great-great-granduncle was in the battle also, and we didn't know. But it's really important to set the kaupapa. So when you start journey of engaging, it's being clear on do you have the right to tell the story you're telling? Now, let's say it's not a Māori story, make something else. But how do you engage with them and you want to get onto their land to film? And my advice off the bat would be share the story. Let them understand what it is you're trying to film, because they have opinions about how their whenua is used. And so it's about being open, engaging. And I do know that everybody engages differently, and I'm going to hand it to these guys to talk about some of the engagement they had, because there's no checklist, as Angela said. There's no one right way. It's how you relate to each and every one of the different hapu that may be different from one to the next. And within Rotorua, we've got all sorts of hapu, and they've all got different needs when we're filming on their land. Some are really prescriptive. We had to pay for someone to come and supervise us in the redwood forest while the Tollywood group were filming in there. And luckily we had some New Zealand crew who were really good at locations, and they understood the needs and made sure that it happened. But we had to pay for them, and others going, we love the kaupapa, where you go. And just say karakia and do it properly. But I'm going to hand it to you guys. Experiences with engagement with our iwi and hapu.
I'm not going to talk about that. I want to talk about the topic of our kōrero, something to do with engaging mana whenua
Māori
perspectives,
navigating Māori concepts in a Western context.
So I read that and I thought, no, that's not really what I'm going to talk about. So, because that topic is symptomatic of a bigger problem to me, and for me it's simple. Kāti tō tāhei I taku ahurea Māori, kāti tō tāhei I taku reo Māori, kāti tō tāhei I taku mana Māori, kāti tō tāhei I aku tikanga Māori. What does that mean in English? The time of Pākehā entitlement to my culture, my language, and my being to be used in Pākehā storytelling is over. Kia ora. What does that mean? What does that mean in practicality? That means, to me, it means that if you want to tell a Māori story, then you have to empower Māori storytellers to tell that story. It means putting Māori into positions of creative control whereby we can use cultural understanding to drive the story, rather than have our culture be an add-on to a story from a culture that's not ours. We're talking about some recent examples of that. So I was in touch with some of my Osage friends in and around Killers of the Flower Moon. I don't know if everyone's seen that. Was the latest Martin Scorsese film, which was starring Leonardo DiCaprio and an unknown First Nations actor, Lily Gladstone. And in some of the conversations I'd had with our Osage friends, they were really optimistic about that film and the level of engagement, the level of co-creation that had been happening in and around the film. And I believe that that film is a different film today because of that level of engagement that had happened. Ultimately, I was disappointed with the outcome of that film, and that it reverted to being a white perspective about a native Indigenous community. And I felt that the main Indigenous characters in that film were disempowered. Their story arcs weren't honoured. And so that's my perspective on that particular film. And again, it's symptomatic of that wider problem of Indigenous not being in positions of control to be able to to be able to dictate or even enhance the way in which they are portrayed. And so that's really what I wanted to talk about. And it happens constantly. I'm constantly sent things to look over, read, and write a cultural report on. The problem with cultural consultancy is that as a consultant, your views can be ingested, and then the person who's holding the creative control of the project can then come out with a version of the thing that you have fed them, which is, again, not in line with our cultural perspective. And so you're going back and forth, continuously trying to feed Māori perspective into the story in a way that would actually enhance the story and make it a better project. But just because of the lack of knowledge and understanding in the creative team, you end up with a marginalised and minimalised view of something that could actually be a very powerful story. Tēnā koutou.
Can I just add to that? I'm also the chairman of Ngāo Whakaari, and one of the things that we've made statements about, which we've yet to do, really push it out publicly, is basically consultants for us are no longer acceptable. It's producers or partnerships, because that's where the power lies. And when pressure comes on, unless you understand the Māori world, people revert to what they know. And if they don't know the Māori world, it's the Māori concepts and issues that get chopped or get affected. And so we are saying we're going to put it out to everybody, pulling on the producing team. So when I did the Tollywood thing, I went on as a producer, only because if I'm going to get them onto the land and all these special places, I need to ensure that I have power in that organisation to affect the changes that need to happen at any point in time. And if it's not producers, because it can be a big call, genuine partnerships where you have to sign up to adhering to the advice, not just advice, but the actions that you agree upon, so that the Māori sensibilities don't get stripped and don't get slashed and hacked away, because that's what's happened. We can go through a lot of movies and tell you where it's fallen over. Anyway, just putting that out there.
So I was the co-producer, one of the co-producers for The Convert. And tēnā rā koutou. And I've never produced anything in my life. That was the first thing that I got asked to be a part of. Originally I said no. And then a whole raft of things happened, which ended up with my wife telling me, you complain enough about producers, so go and be one. And so I did, on those wise words. And my main role in that role was to look after all of the cultural content, from the locations through to the kākahu, through to the moko design, through to some of the scripting, through to working with some of the changes, also the taha wairua of things, all of it, the whole thing. And to just jump on off the back of what Piripi said, there is Māori consultants, that thing is done. Ko muti tērā. Because what I experienced having to do all of that is the exact same weight and job that is required to do financial closes, scheduling, contracting, because it all involves those things as well. So my engagement with all of the 16 tribes of interest within the Tāmaki region was actually really, really good. But I'm going to tell a story where it went bad. And I think it's important to tell this story because I learned a lot from this. We had a location which, under advice from the council, from rangers, we were told there was a specific hapu that we needed to engage with. What happened was that was wrong. It was someone else. And so rather than go about it over email, I took myself and my producer partners to face the fires of the hapu face to face. This is how engagement is supposed to happen. Tātou te Māori. We do have email, we do have cell phones, we do have hapu board, marae board, all of these things. Electricity, all of these. Yeah. Some of us. But we are not interested in dealing with those types of technologies. We need to be seen face. He kano hiki te ao. And so during this big whirl, it was the fact that I showed up with my producing partners to hear the grievances of the fact that they weren't consulted with first. They ended up being the second hapu, not the first hapu. There's a lot of hapu politics that exist within these things, right? But that's just the lay of the land, and it's been that way, mai rāno. It's going to be that way, mai rāno, okay? And so we took it on the chin, and then we got scared a little bit because they said that had they said no, it would have just put a massive halt to the whole film, all right? And so I believe had it not been for a Māori process, the convert would never have been finished. And the reason being is they like to see who they are dealing with. I agree with lots of the points. They want to read the script. The other thing on top of that is our entry into any of these hapu, any of these rohe, one of the purposeful things I would do is go, we are shooting these scenes on your whenua. Because that knowledge, knowing for the haukainga, for the hapu, they will go, there's one of two things that will happen. They will get up and they will talk about whakapapa that relate to those scenes. We did a massacre scene on a whenua that had a massacre whakapapa. And so those things are intertwined with the fact that it then pushes us as producers to then allow haukainga, hapu, and iwi to be a part of the resolution and part of the kaupapa by holding space to clear those whenua for us. We are not going in there just to shoot and then piss off. We have to go in there and they have to do as much work as we have to do. And that was my wero to them. It's not just us showing up, getting them to sign the memorandum and then, then they're not seen again. No. So my challenge with all of the engagement, with all of the hapu, nā koutou te whenua, nā koutou te whakapapa, nā koutou ngā wāhi tapu. It's your responsibility to make us feel safe on your whenua. We have come, we will do everything that you ask of us, but mā koutou e wāwahi te whenua. You open the whenua for us. Mā koutou ngā karakia, you clear the areas for us. Mā koutou te kōrero. If there are changes because ka rūrū mai te whenua, ka puta mai wetai o ngā wairua, if you need us to edit the script because you don't want us to upset the wairua of any other mamai that's in that whenua, you let us know what that looks like. So that it becomes a partnership, ne? And they have a genuine voice in your kaupapa. They have a genuine voice in your kaupapa. I would finish all my hui and all my whai kōrero like this. If anything goes wrong, this is the face you come and look for. Because they've seen me, they've felt me, they've heard me, and I will be there. I'm happy to stand in the face of fires if anything goes wrong. Why? Because tātou te Māori, that's how we operate. That's how we operate. And so those operational skills are tikanga nei, are ahurea nei, they totally transfer over to being a producer. It works in both worlds, ne? It works in both worlds. And so, luckily they said, kei te pai koe te kohe. But there was a caveat, which meant that we are now committed, myself and Robin Scholes, to making one of their stories. They say, yeah, we'll let you fellas do it. But we got a kōrero. Yeah. We expect you to make it. Whenua. Whenua. And so we're in that process at the moment, putting that together for them. This whole engagement thing can be super scary for some, but I'm lucky in the sense, I tipu Māori mai ai. I sat at the feet of my grandfather at some big ass hui when he was around. And then, so being in those kind of boardroom situations, having to kōrero, it's in the DNA. It's in the DNA. Tēnei mei te whai kōrero, it's in the DNA. That's negotiation. But it has to be a negotiation. It's got to be a negotiation. So room for shape, scope, and transformation is all about another kaupapa that I love about engagement, which is building capacity within our own. And I didn't let any of the hapu get off scot-free. I said, we need, from a productions perspective, we need those memorandums of understanding to allow council to let us shoot there, to allow the rangers to let us shoot there, to allow everybody, for Screen Auckland to come in and manaki our kaupapa. So I turned it back on them and I said, anei tātai, we can help you put this together for the next kaupapa that comes here. So you have a platform to be able to go, yeah, I tai mai te kohe me wana nei kōrero, he came with his stuff. So what have you got? Ana? And koira te mea nui. Our kaupapa they're not givens. Like, for me, I think there needs to be a change in the attitude towards, we have an opportunity for you e te whānau. You have to go with the anei ngā kōrero e te whānau. Ingest it. This is what we would like. This is how we would like to engage with you. This is how we would like to sit and mahi ki rungi i o whenua. And in your time, hara mai, ka wānanga ngā kaupapa. Kia ora, I think I'll talk to you now.
Yeah, actors and their monologue, you know.
I don't want to go after that. Hey, nah. A lot of that kōrero resonated. I think like the kanohi ki te kanohi is so important. The reciprocation, so important. And I think the practical reality of that for us to all be aware of, and I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but that stuff takes time and money. So just ensuring that everyone in the team is on board with that, is budgeting for that, is really, really important. On Uproar, I was really lucky to work with creatives who were of the same mind. They were very much in support of whatever has to be done. We support it. We don't know what it is. We don't know what it looks like, but we're here. We support you with the wallets and with the time. So, yeah, I think that's really, really important. What else? The other thing I would say in terms of partnership, and I'm talking about not necessarily partnership with mana whenua, but partnership when working with Māori as part of the creative team, is that it's important to have a plan for when you don't agree.
Yeah, kia ora.
Because there will be, I know, even working with the best teams that support each other, it's all well and good when everything's going well, when we can all pat each other on the back and say, yeah, we're all on the same waka. But there will inevitably have that moment where we don't agree, and what does that look like, and how do we get through that? One thing that we did in Uproar, far out, we had so many hui, like we got sick of it at a point, but it was necessary. Like we actually had to come together, we all had to say what our point of view was, and then we had to come up with a plan going forward. But in terms of the legality, we had a clause in our contract that anything to do with the culture, I had the final say on. And I think that's really important because we're talking about, consultation and producing. Producing is having the final legal say. So what I would add to that is that's a responsibility, it's not a power. So that responsibility comes with representing mana whenua. I become a māngai for a lot of people, a representative, a voice. So I think those are tools that can help. Budget for it, time, and have a plan for when you don't agree. Also, gather your supporters. One thing I want to say to non-Māori is it's so helpful to have Māori everywhere when you're trying to tell a Māori story. So having your cast and your crew and your suppliers, and can I tell you, if the kaupapa doesn't speak to you, it helps when you get to distribution, and it helps when it comes to the money side, getting people invested in your story and sharing your story. So if that's the only thing that speaks to you, you should do it for that reason. That's obviously not why I do it, just a disclaimer. I want to speak to your point about capacity building. We talk a lot about telling our own stories, and we've kind of got two things going on here. We've got telling our stories with non-Māori partners and telling our stories, you know, by ourselves. And the wero to Māori filmmakers is it's up to us to get the skills to be able to be entrusted with the pūtea to tell those stories. So that would be my wero. However you can, enhance yourself, get better. That sounds so patronising, but just go with it. Yeah, kia ora.
I agree with that, eh? When you're putting things together, especially when it comes to consultation, engagement, anything to do with tika, anything to do with te ao Māori, give it a name, give it a line, give it a budget. Because then it exists. Then we eliminate the cloud that for years people have been hiding behind. Pākehā mai, Māori mai, koha. Give it a name, give it a line, give it a budget. Kia ora tātai.
So we've got a question here about some of the benefits to mana whenua through this engagement. I'll start off. One of the things that I've been on both sides, both as producer and as mana whenua, on a number of different projects in Rotorua, where I do just about all our filming. We have had in place for a long time a training aspect. We created a training course for Vegas when Vegas came to Rotorua, and we trained up 20 kids. We put them on for 6 weeks and then put them into the production. And man, they were awesome. They took to it like ducks to water. And we've still got a number of them still engaged in the camera department. The only issue is once a project comes, it goes, and then they're left with nothing. And so we do get an attrition rate. But our course was so effective, these kids were really contributing significantly to their departments as assistants. And I think that for a lot of, when engaging in mana whenua, if you can actually talk about developing and bringing their people on to be on their land to help tell your story, that's where you'll get a lot more buy-in as well. Because it's not just about you coming to use the land, it's about how can you grow. For Māori, the idea of if it's good to sustain life, then it's a valuable cause. You know, and so if you can grow their kids into your industry, because it's an awesome industry to be in when it's going, and then you have no work, but it's awesome to have them, and they love it. They're really good at it. And so there's a way in which you can help. And if I've had a few questions over the recent little while about how can I as a Pākehā tell stories, Māori stories, and the answer is you can't. But here's and you guys can argue about this with me. I think there's an opportunity if you've got really good skill sets and you can actually grow people into your role, if you're a director or a producer, then why wouldn't we partner with you if we're going to grow our capacity? So for all of those who have an inkling to tell a Māori story, find the right people to partner with and use your skill sets to elevate them. And that way, you know, we can all gain out of that sort of interaction. Anyway, throwing it to you guys. Any quarter about?
It's important to work with the people that you would like to mahi on their whenua and their region and all of those things, because there's a safety there, right? It's all about safety. From an old Māori perspective in our industry, There's been huge use of karakia at the beginning of the day, having building capacity using, uri from those iwi, from those hapu, which is all great. But it's not, for me, I go, well, it's great in the sense that it holds us together and we feel safe, and it's not a gimmick, because one of my pet peeves is karakia for the sake of karakia. Nobody actually knows why we actually karakia. And the karakia themselves aren't hāngai. They don't relate to anything, And it also falls on the one Māori person who's usually in the crew to have to do it. So, karite rei te tika. But if you're dealing and you have engagement with the hapu, iwi, and the whānau, they have the responsibility to come in, keep you nice and safe in their whenua and keep you nice and safe with their whānau. So, yeah, I think I made sense. Aroa mai te whana, I'm shooting something with kairaka, with all of those young interns that are now amazing.
Yes, yeah. So Vegas, we started to instill karakia by department. We put the responsibility on department, no matter with your Māori or Pākehā.
Kia ora.
Today is your day. You've got to go to the HODs, get your people trained up, because your day is on Tuesday, your day is on this day. So we pass it around so that there's, it's not just on the one person, because, yeah, we've all experienced that. What role do you see the regional film officers playing in ensuring the correct engagement happens?
I mean, that's a good question. I think regional film officers, being cognizant of it and also having an expectation, because we were actually just having this conversation about, I think it was more around location consents, and regional film officers have, they're the first access point that you go to, right? You go to if you want to film in that region, you'll go to the regional office and you'll state that intention, and then they will say you need to do X, Y, Z, or these are the people that we can connect you with. And so I think being a representative for that region is important, because you are an information provider. I'm obviously not from a regional office, so I can't really speak more than that, but yeah.
I'd think that probably the first step for the regional officers is ensuring that their relationships with mana whenua are solid, that you have an ongoing relationship with those mana whenua that sit in the area that you're, and to be aware that Pākehā boundary lines don't run along the same boundary lines as iwi ones do. Say, for example, the Tauranga district breaks into part of our Te Arawa Rohe, which runs all the way from Maketu all the way inland to Rotorua. So while you might be under the Tauranga District Council, if you're in Maketu, actually it's a totally different iwi to be dealing with. It's not the Tauranga iwi. So just be aware of some of those issues. Make sure that you've got solid relationships in place, ongoing maintenance of those relationships, and you can't go wrong. I just want to pick up on something that Angela talked about earlier. She talked about responsibility, which is a big part of the philosophy of mana, and Te Kohe's talked about it as well. So again, I'm going off topic, going rogue again. So part of the idea of upholding the mana of others and the mana of yourself is that in any interaction, you're looking to uphold everybody's mana, and therefore by upholding the mana of everyone that you're interacting with, your own mana is upheld. And in any time where you aren't holding on to those responsibilities that you have of the mana of the iwi with which you are supposed to deal with, that's not manakitanga. That's not upholding the mana of those people. So understanding that when you step into Te Ao Māori, it is a very different world from Te Ao Pākehā, and that there are things and rules in place for us as Māori that don't exist in the Pākehā world, and there are ways of interacting and rules around engagement that are in place for us that need to be upheld and respected for us to be able to forge relationships. So understanding that Māori culture is very different to Pākehā culture, and that often the iwi or the hapu that you're dealing with have been marginalised and have been left out of empowering processes for centuries. And so your job when you're interacting with them is to ensure them that you are going to look after their mana in the process that you want to tell your story or engage them in that process. So, koe nano.
Kia ora.
I have another question here. Kia ora. For engagement for non-kaupapa Māori narratives, filming is still wanting to go ahead on whenua with whakapapa. What action would you use to ensure Māori capacity is built to work at producer level in international productions? How do we avoid burnout?
Strong rautaki. So if you know what your film or your project is, then you engage with really early on. Doesn't regardless of the content, I would say, and build a strong rautaki, a strong cultural system that holds your project, that stands up to working on whenua, that is inclusive of having mana whenua voices in it for the areas that you would like to shoot on. Because there could be wāhi tapu, there's a whole raft of things that need to be taken into consideration, but that's the first thing that jumps out to me, is a strong rautaki that encompasses everything from a cultural understanding, may not be in front of the camera, maybe just behind it, but that in itself still needs to be really strong. Kia ora, tātai.
And probably understand too that every inch of this country has a kōrero to it, has a whakapapa to it, has a history that's usually soaked in blood, and it's usually there is going to be a kōrero attached to that whenua. You know, the Ngāti Whātua, people talked about Waifakata, which is the name of this area here that used to be waterway, but is now being filled in with landfill, and hence the name Waifakata. Talks about the nature of the water as it was here before the landfill came in. So know that every inch of this country has a kōrero, has whakapapa to it, has a history, and that the hapu may or may not even be aware of that kōrero themselves because of the disenfranchisement and the disconnection with the whenua that's been forced on them. But know that everywhere you go, there is something to be aware of.
I'm going to give a bit of a plug here. Ngā Whakaari is creating a database of Māori, and so go and see that if you need to start the engagement. Start with getting people in your team. That's really important. And also, another plug, Ngā Whakaari looking at ways to help create really authentic engagement for people who don't have Māori kaupapa films. Because, you know, if you want to do a horror, but you need to go up this particular mountain and to engage, come and see Ngā Whakaari, because it's something that I think we need to fill the gap with, because there's not a lot of knowledge out there to help people who don't know where to start. And we are keen to, we haven't put it in place yet, but this is what we've been talking about, as to how to help people who want to do the engagement well and get their film made. So, and if we can't do it, we can actually point you in a direction to find the right people to help you. But we will be encouraging you, if a lot of your film or your project happens to be on Māori whenua, we'll be encouraging you to look at how can you bring a Māori producer into your team. That way it keeps you safe, but also gets you access easily into the right places in the best way you can.
Can I also just add, one of the best, I don't want to say resource, but places you can go is NZFC Rautaki Māori team, Te Ao Kaurangi, they've been the greatest support to me on my journey.
Kia ora.
And they are there to help. And so don't be shy. Go have that conversation.
So probably the short answer to all of your questions is just, hi, Angela or Kohe or Piripi.
Another question, do you have any advice for rangatahi Māori trying to tell their authentic stories in the current filmmaking landscape of today?
Don't listen to people who tell you what that story looks like. I got a teenager and I have no idea the way his brain operates, so I just don't even try to attempt to understand the story. I'll just go, Aire, you go do it.
So part of my advice would be to study how others have done it. Get alongside people who have done it before, and people whose approach and style you like and admire. You know, we're often looking for ones that we want to bring through, because as Māori we've got a fairly long view, both forwards and backwards. And so we were often looking for ones that we can mentor to bring into the film space. So go e whakamā.
Kia ora.
Approach those ones that you see as role models, and mā te aha i te pata. You don't know what might happen if you ask. So that's my piece of advice. Kia ora.
Question for you, Angela. What was the budget for using Otahu College as a location for Uproar, and what was the process?
I mean, that's a great question. I don't have the figure off the top of my head, but the process was to hire an expert. So Te Whale Matawheo was our location supervisor. I've worked with him for years and years and years, and he already had that relationship. So we didn't have to work from the ground up. He came in and he had that conversation, and he did all the hard work. And he is really good at making sure that people are appropriately compensated. So he will look at what we have and he will make that decision. And I think that's important to trust the team that you work with. So it's not a flash answer. It's pretty straightforward, but hire an expert and trust them.
All right, almost out of time. I'm going to finish on this little story about the Tollywood film that came to Rotorua. They had put a guy in place for about a year or 8 or 9 months, and he went around trying to secure all the locations on his own. And because of his cultural differences, he was screwing it up all over the place. And so when I came on, I was unpicking the issues that he'd created, because it's just the way, it wasn't deliberate. That's the way they do their thing. And he was a bit of a pushy guy, and it came across all wrong. But when I came on as producer, I said, well, you are wai tapu, let's start properly. I need all your crew. You're going to do this before we start filming. We're going to have a pōhiri at Tamata Kapua. It ended up being at another marae, Tunahopu. They were busy. But we had them come to the pōhiri and engage properly with with Tiaroa. And once we got through the pōhiri and the I guess the queers from Ngāti Whakauera and those who came to speak, they were expecting it to be just a little pōhiri, but these guys brought their own cultural things to it and they were blown away. But once we had that cultural exchange, when I went to unpick a lot of the hassles, when I spoke to the mana whenua at Redwood Forest, they'd said, why are you talking to me? I've already told them no twice. So I had to sit in the room with them. And then when I talked about how they have engaged properly, we've done the pōhiri, we had a cultural exchange, it started to change the way in which they looked at the production. It was a hard thing to unpick because they'd already were annoyed with them. But it's because of the engagement, because I was a producer on the film now, that they felt they could start to trust what was going on. And to be fair, whenever this production went, it was organised mayhem. But they were lovely, they were well-meaning, but they flew 150 people over And we had a lot of people, I didn't know what they were doing half the time. But that's, you know, the big stars had up to 5, 6 personal assistants. And it was a wonderful experience, but crazy. Well, I guess the point I want to leave you with is, if you start to engage in every level of your production authentically with engagement with Māori and the way in which you run your production, it makes a really good inroad to the relationships you need to develop. Because at the end of the day, mana whenua, how to navigate this, really about relationships.
Kia ora.
Māori really are, prefer kanohi ki te kanohi. Who are you? What are you up to? What are you about? And they want to hear from you, not from the books, not from the emails. And it's relationships that will get you all the way to getting finished on your film. And so I would encourage you, and if you need help, now whakaari is there are plenty of Māori around who would happily help out as long as you paid them. And you can get through this. You know, Lord of the Rings wouldn't happen in today's world the way it did. It would be a very different process for them to complete the Lord of the Rings in today's environment. So it is a changed landscape, but it's not hard. It's just have to think differently and plan for it. Anyway, that is us.
Kia ora.
Ngā mihi kia koutou.
The Big Screen Symposium 2024 was presented by Script to Screen. We gratefully thank our event partners, the New Zealand Film Commission, Images and Sound, New Zealand On Air, and Te Mangai Paho. Voiceover is by Jamie Irvine and the music is by Poddington Bear. You can read more about these speakers at our website, www.bigscreensymposium.com. This podcast is brought to you thanks to generous support from Images and Sound.